I stumbled up my front porch, exhausted after a brutal 12-hour shift at the hospital, my scrubs still clinging to me like a second skin. All I wanted was to kick off my shoes, sink into my couch, and forget the world for a few hours. But when I slipped my key into the lock, it wouldn't budge. I jiggled it, thinking maybe I was just too tired to get it right. Nothing. I tried again, harder, my frustration bubbling up. Still nothing. My key, the same one that worked perfectly that morning, was useless in my own front door. That's when I saw Ida glaring orange notice taped to the doorframe, screaming at me in bold letters. Saw notice of property seizure Meadow VUI, EW Homeowners Association saw. My stomach twisted as I scanned the words. Saw due to violation of covenant section 12.3 and failure to remit payment, this property has been secured by Meadow VUI, EW HOA, pending resolution saw. I stood there, frozen, my mind racing. This had to be a mistake. A cruel prank. I owned this house outright, no mortgage, no debts, no nothing. How could anyone secure my home? Hey, Sarah. My neighbor, Linda, poked her head out from her porch across the street, her voice cautious. Janet was here earlier with some guy. They were messing with your locks around noon. Janet. Of course. Janet Miller, the self-crowned queen of Meadow VYEW, our HOA president who wielded the community bylaws like a scepter. For months, she'd had it out for me, nitpicking every tiny detail of my property with a vengeance. A flower pot an inch too close to the sidewalk. A mailbox that was too reflective. And now, apparently, she'd taken it to a whole new level. My hands shook as I yanked my phone from my pocket and dialed 911. Hi. Yes, I need to report a break-in and an illegal lockout at my house, I said, my voice trembling with a mix of exhaustion and rage. As I waited for the police, I sank onto the front steps, my mind replaying the past week, trying to make sense of how it had come to this. It all started 4 days ago with a certified letter from the HOA, delivered with the pomp of a royal decree. Inside was a due $500 fine for unapproved invasive vegetation in my front yard. I walked outside, expecting to find a jungle of weeds, but all I saw was a single dandelion, its yellow head poking up defiantly after a recent rain. One dandelion, $500. I fired off an email to Janet, politely explaining that the fine was absurd and asking her to reconsider. Her reply was ice cold. Saw the bylaws clearly state all invasive weeds must be removed within 24 hours. Your refusal to comply or pay will result in escalating consequences. Saw. I wrote back, saying I'd happily pluck the dandelion, but wouldn't pay a fine that was clearly just a cash grab. That's what she called me. Sarah, you don't seem to understand how things work in Meadow VYEW, she purred, her voice dripping with fake sweetness that barely hid her contempt. The HOA agreement you signed gives us certain rights. Refuse to comply, and there will be serious consequences. I laughed it off at the time. What could she do over a dandelion? Change my locks? Steal my house? Apparently, that was exactly her plan. My phone had been buzzing with security system alerts all day, but between back-to-back surgeries, I hadn't had a second to check them. Now, sitting on my steps, I scrolled through the footage, and there she was, Janet, in her crisp khaki capris and baby blue cardigan, clipboard in hand, directing a man with a toolbox toward my door. The audio was crystal clear. As the HOA enforcement officer, I have legal authorization to secure this property due to the homeowner's violation of covenant agreements and refusal to pay legally binding fines, she declared, thrusting papers at the locksmith. He looked unsure, but kept working as she pressed on. It's all legitimate. The homeowner has been notified and has forfeited their rights. The HOA owns this property now. My blood boiled as I watched her smug smile while she pocketed a shiny new set of keys. 20 minutes later, 2 police cruisers rolled up. Officer Daniels approached, glancing between me and the notice. So, you're saying this isn't an authorized EVY tie-in? He asked, his tone neutral but curious. This is my home, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. I own it outright. No mortgage, no foreclosure, no EVY tie-in. The HOA president changed my locks because I wouldn't pay a due $500 fine for a single dandelion. I could tell he thought I was exaggerating. So I pulled up the security footage and let Janet's performance speak for itself. His partner, Officer Hayes, let out a low whistle. That's not how HOAs work. I handed over my deed, driver's license, and tax statements, pro-VYing I'd never missed an HOA payment or faced any legal action. This is just a woman abusing her power because I dare to question her, I said. As we spoke, a white SUV screeched to a stop, and out stormed Janet, her face a mix of shock and indignation at the sight of police cars. She didn't even wait for a question before launching into her defense. Officers, I'm Janet Miller, president of Meadow VY EWHOA. This Indy VY duel has repeatedly VY-OLAT our covenants and refused to pay legally mandated fines. Under Section 29 of our bylaws, we have the right to take possession until all debts are settled. Officer Daniels' face hardened. Ma'am, can you show me the court order authorizing you to change these locks? Janet blinked, her confidence faltering. We don't need a court order. It's in our bylaws, which all homeowners sign. Daniels shook her head. That's not how property law works in this state. No HOA can seize a home without a court process. Where's a locksmith who did this? Janet's composure cracked. He's an independent contractor. I have his info in my office, she stammered. Officer Hayes was already on his phone, his voice clipped. We'll need that immediately. Changing locks without authorization is breaking and entering, possibly burglary. The tide turned when Hayes got off his call. The locksmith company confirms they were hired for a property transfer at this address. The work order was signed by Janet Miller as property transfer officer for Meadow VY EWHOA. He fixed her with a stare. Ma'am, does that position exist in your organization? Janet's face flushed crimson. As president, I oversee all property management, which includes transfers when necessary, she said, her voice wavering. Daniels scribbled in her notebook. So, you misrepresented yourself to gain illegal access to a property you have no claim to? Did you enter the home after changing the locks? Janet's silence was deafening. I could hardly believe it when Daniels pulled out her cuffs and read Janet her Miranda rights. You're under arrest for criminal trespass, breaking and entering, attempted conversion of property, and falsifying documents. Janet's composure shattered as they led her to the cruiser. This is outrageous, she shrieked. I was protecting our community values. Property values drop 15 fan-tram when lawns aren't maintained. I was acting for everyone's benefit. She twisted toward me, her eyes blazing. You'll regret this, Sarah. The entire board will back me. The locksmith arrived soon after, looking horrified as he realized he'd been duped. She showed me paperwork. I thought it was legit, he said, quickly restoring my original locks and promising a full statement. Officer Daniels escorted me inside, checking every room to ensure nothing was disturbed. In 20 years, I've seen HOA disputes, but nothing like this, she said, shaking her head. The DA takes property crimes seriously. With this EVY Denke and her premeditated actions, Ms. Miller's facing multiple felony charges. Breaking and entering alone carries up to 5 years. The fallout was swift. The HOA board called an emergency meeting and voted unanimously to oust Janet as president pending the criminal investigation. Neighbors came forward with their own stories of her threats and overreach, painting a picture of a woman drunk on power. The kicker came during discovery for the criminal case. The invasive weed violation was based on an outdated landscaping report that wrongly listed dandelions as a Class A invasive species. A classification the state had updated 3 years earlier. Janet had nearly stolen my home over a typo. When the judge handed down her sentence, 18 months in prison and due law $30,000 in restitution for my legal fees and damages, Janet's face went blank, as if she still couldn't grasp that her HOA power trip had real consequences. But it was just a weed, she whispered as they led her away, her voice barely audible. I stood in my doorway that night, new keys in hand, staring at the quiet street. Meadow VYEW would never be the same, and neither would I. One dandelion had exposed a tyrant, and I'd fought back. But at what cost? What do you think? Did Janet deserve her punishment, Or was she just a misguided enforcer of community standards? Should HOAs have the power to fine homeowners over something as small as a single weed? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if this story fired you up, and subscribe for more real-life dramas that'll keep you on the edge of your seat.